Hey friends, Happy New Year and welcome back to Christian Podcasting Secrets. I'm Tammy Munson, your host, and we're tackling a juicy topic today. Why you shouldn't start a podcast in 2025. Yep, you heard me right. I said don't. At least not without some serious reflection. I know. Coming from someone who loves all things podcasting and owns a podcast production agency, that may sound a little crazy. But trust me, if you're thinking about starting a show this year, you need to hear this. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in. So, Happy New Year, my friend. Can you believe it's actually 2025? A brand new year full of possibilities. But before we dive into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to say Happy New Year. I hope that you have had a chance to rest and reflect after all the things we experienced in 2024, and most especially the holiday chaos. So here's to a year full of bold moves, staying aligned with God's calling, and just be ready to be obedient and trust the process. Also, let's talk a little bit about my voice today. It sounds a little different. And no, it's not your speakers. It's not a new AI or anything like that. I happened to pick up some sort of bug while I was in New Orleans for Christmas. And I'm getting better, but the voice is not great. But this is just the reality of life. It's pure authenticity, right? But as they say, the show must go on. Okay, let's get into it. First, we're going to start off with a little reality check. Now, this episode, as I said, is for those who are thinking about starting a podcast. But some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about will apply to current podcasters as well. Podcasting is having a moment again. It's happened several times over the last 20 some odd years. And right now, there are over 3.2 million active podcasts out there. It seems that everybody and their dog seems to be launching a podcast of some sort, whether it's audio only or video or they're doing both pieces. And while that is absolutely amazing and I'm so excited for it, it also means that the space is getting a little crowded. Now, here's the deal. It's no longer enough to grab a mic and ramble on for 45 minutes, an hour or so. Listeners are picky. They're very picky these days. They want content that's meaningful, has a little bit of polish on it, and quite honestly, it's worth their time. So starting a podcast without a clear plan, that's a recipe for frustration. I've seen too many people over the years dive in without really understanding the commitment that's involved. I hear things like, oh, I'll just talk about whatever comes to my mind and it'll be great. Spoiler alert, that rarely happens. So before you jump on the bandwagon, you need to get real with yourself. You need to ask yourself some hard questions. Questions like, why are you doing this? Who are you doing it for? And these leads me to the two most important questions that I ask every single launch client that I talk to. So, question one, why do you want to start a podcast? And I mean, really, what's your heart behind this? Is it because you feel called by God to share your story, share God's message? Or is it because you think you're going to make a lot of money or you're going to become famous? So here's the thing I've learned over the years is your why has to be solid. So let me give you an example. One of my clients started her podcast to encourage women who are balancing motherhood and ministry. Now that's a powerful why. Compare that to another client that came to me and said, well, I heard podcasting is trendy. I heard you can make a lot of money. So I thought, why not? I'll give it a shot. That's not going to sustain you, quite honestly. On the days when you can't think of what you want to talk about, you feel discouraged, the editing is tough, you have to re-record things, your voice is not 100% because you're sick, the podcast consumption rates are not doing well, whatever it is, it's going to be hard. And your why needs to align with God's purpose for you. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3 reminds us, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. So before you start a podcast, take a moment to pray and reflect, journal. Ask God if this is where He's leading you. Is this where He wants you to be? Now, question number 2, who is your audience? Who are you talking to? Now, this is huge, y'all. If you're trying to talk to everyone, you're going to end up connecting with practically no one. You have to have a niche. You have to know who you're speaking to, and you need to be pretty detailed in that. Are you wanting to connect with young moms? What kind of age group? Are we talking newborns, toddlers, pregnant moms? Are you trying to connect with faith-based entrepreneurs? Women in ministry? What kind of ministry? Like I said, you need to get really specific. So here's a fun exercise I like to do with launch clients. And I want you to picture your ideal listener. What does she look like? What kind of life stage is she in? What does she need to hear from you? What is she looking for? What are her struggles? So if you can't answer those questions, it's probably time to do some research before you start coming up with topics and recording and all the things. Now, I want to get real about why you may not want to start a podcast or why you shouldn't. Okay, first up, you might not be ready for the commitment because podcasting is no joke. It takes time, lots of time. It takes planning and writing, and yes, I said writing, recording and editing and promoting. It's basically a part-time job. And if you were already stretched thin with all the other things that you're doing, adding a podcast to your plate may not be the best move for you right now. The next, maybe you don't have a very clear vision. So if someone asks you what your podcast is about and you ramble on for 5 minutes and they're still looking at you like, I have no idea what you're talking about, you know the look, that's a problem. A good and successful podcast, by most people's definitions, have a clear purpose and a clear direction. Like when people ask me, what's your podcast about? Well, it's a podcast for Christian women podcasters on how to launch their podcast, how to grow their podcast. It's very specific, and you need to have the same thing for yours. And finally, the last point about this is if you think that you're going to make 6 figures, it's a shortcut to fame and fortune and all of the things that go with that, I hate to burst your bubble, my friend. It's not going to happen. Yes, podcasting can open doors. They can bring in clients. They can help sell products. They can help sell books. They can help sell services. Of course, absolutely 110%. Podcasts can do that for you. But it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Creating a tight-knit community, a successful podcast, takes time. And the most successful podcasters are the ones who focus on serving their audience, giving them what they need, not chasing the numbers. It's probably not what you expected to hear from me today. But let's flip the script for just a moment. So if you're out there and you're saying, Tammy, I've done the work. I've done the research. I can answer the why and the who questions. And I know I have the time to do this and I'm ready to commit to it. Well, my friend, podcasting is going to be an incredible tool for you. One of the things about podcasting, it's a way that you can share your God-given message with the world. This podcast serves, at last count, 32, we have listeners in 32 different countries, which is just amazing. The thing about podcasting is that it builds community and it fosters connection and gives you a platform to serve others in a very unique way. So friend, if you're out there and you're feeling that nudge from the Lord, I don't want you to ignore it. I want you to trust and be obedient. My friend Joni said that to me just the other day. But remember, preparation is the key to all of this. I want you to pray about it. I want you to plan for it. And if you need help, I am always here for you. So, should you start a podcast this year? Maybe. That's for you to determine. But I only want you to do that if you've taken the time to reflect and plan and align your vision with God's purpose. And my friend, if you're feeling overwhelmed about all of this, so if you've decided I'm going to do the thing, I'm going to launch the podcast this year, and if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, you're not alone and welcome to the club. But I don't want you to worry about that because I have a resource to help you do exactly that. So I created a guide, absolutely free, no cost to anybody at all whatsoever, on how to launch your podcast. It is filled with tips on finding your why, defining your audience, recording, equipment, what platform you should use, what platform I recommend, and it's absolutely free. So if you are ready to take the leap, all you have to do is go over to wildfirecreativecompany.com, and at the top of the main page there will be a link to the guide. Put your email in, boom, done. That's all you got to do. And if you need any help, myself and of course my entire team at Wildfire Creative are here to help you launch with confidence. Shoot me an email at tammy@wildfirecreativecompany.com. As always, I want to hear your thoughts. I want you to share your why with me over on Instagram, or you can send me a DM over there. You can find me at Tammy_Munson, or you can hit us up over on the Wildfire account, which is Wildfire Creative Co. I can't wait to cheer you on. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, stay true to your calling. Keep spreading God's word through your story. I'll talk to you next Wednesday, and Happy New Year, my friend. Bye, y'all.